Hey everybody, welcome to the D. Louise book series. I'm Christina K-R-I-S-T-I-N-A. K-R-I-S-T-I-N-A. This is where we read books and talk about books. There are no special effects going on here. I have no theme music. I have none of that special stuff that everybody else has. It's just me reading books, talking books. I may try and do a special couple things later, but when I do stuff like that, it pops up here. So I've been trying to look for some new stuff to read, some new series authors to read on. And so I picked this one up the other day. And when it first started out, I felt like I should be in a Jason Bourne movie or a Tom Cruise Mission Impossible movie because of the car chases and the boat chases and this chase and this and that. It was just like, I was like, okay. But then it got interesting. And the fact that, and we will get into the fact that some of this is actually true. The author took a true piece of information and embellished on it and made a story out of it for fictional purposes, for a good story, a very good story, a very interesting story, a very historical story. But the fact that some of this was actually true and I was able to look it up and verify that it was actually true, it just blew my mind away. So, it's Steve Berry, the Patriot Threat. And it starts off in 1936. Franklin Roosevelt is meeting with Andrew Mellon, who owes it. It reminds me of the orange guy. We won't mention his name. We do not like this person, but he's also not paid taxes for hundreds of years too, and nobody cares. Nobody. They're trying, but nobody cares. And he does whatever he wants. No one tells him no. No, he just feels he's the most privileged person in the world. So, anyways, let's get off that platform. But anyway, Andrew Mellon owed the IRS a lot of money, and Franklin Delano Roosevelt went after him for years, and they never could get him. And it's not explained why Roosevelt did this, but it's just said that for whatever reasons that Roosevelt had, he didn't like Mellon and he wanted to get him, and he never could. So instead, Mellon comes to him and says, how about I build a national gallery of art? Instead of giving you all this money, I will build a gallery of art that will provide income and tourist dollars to Washington, D.C. for a very long time. So it starts out, let's see if I can do this. There we go. It's Cotton Malone. He had come to Italy expecting to covertly observe a massive financial transaction. Instead, he was in the middle of a bloodbath. It also deals with the Chinese and this guy named Young Kim, who took his kids to Disneyland, and apparently that was a fatal sin with his father, and he was disinherited and removed from the throne-ness, and his half-brother was put in his place, his illegitimate half-brother, no less. So, and then there's this guy, Paul Larks, who's discovered the secrets, and Kim tries to get it out of him and kills him with truth serum and other stuff. Then Nellie is part of the, I should have really written down their descriptions, but she's with the Treasury. She has this agency that she runs, like a Mission Into type agency, and she runs spies all over. And one of her employees comes to her and says, I let this happen. I'm ashamed I let this happen, but this guy was blackmailing me and didn't give me a choice. And Malone works for Stephanie. It's called the Magellan Billet. He's a retired person, Navy person, military, all this kind of stuff background. He owns an old bookshop in Copenhagen, and he was asked out of retirement if he could go watch this thing happen. And Paul Laux is a former Treasury guy, and Annan Wayne Howell is an American fugitive because he's not paid taxes either. And he is like the key to most of this. The reason he feels that the 16th Amendment is invalid, and there's a whole bunch of page after page after page of clarification on that. Then someone comes after Stephanie. She calls him Chick-fil-A guy because he loves Chick-fil-A, and he warns her against Laux. And apparently Laux was fired 3 months ago because he did something wrong. But before he was left the building, he copied some stuff, top secret documents, one of which is the one paper in the world that there's only one of. So then there's a big boat chase in Venice, and then Kim, the Chinese guy, and Hannah, his daughter, get the tax info. Stephanie, the bullet lady, goes home and she finds the Attorney General on her steps, and the Attorney General, she knew about the cotton and didn't tell her. Then in Venice, Hannah goes into Paul Laux' room. No, she doesn't. That's not right. Colton goes into Paul Laux' room and finds him dead. And while he's standing over the body, Hannah, Kim's daughter, shoves a needle into his leg from under the bed and passes him out. Kim was removed as heir to the throne because he took his kids to Disneyland. There's this big court case going on, USA versus Annan Wayne Howell, failure to pay taxes for 20 years. Like I said, the court case. Then there's some extra stuff about Hannah remembering life in a slave camp. Then back in Washington, they talk about Howell's book. And then Kim reads about Andrew Mellon. And then Stephanie and Harriet read about Andrew Mellon. And they read about Finley to Mellon and the meeting with the president. And I like how they just call him Danny. They don't call him Mr. President. They call him Danny throughout the whole book. Melton wakes up on the floor with the needle in his arm, and Isabella Schaefer, Treasury Department, walks in, and she tells him it looks like he's been framed, but she tells him to get out and leave, but he doesn't leave. Joe Levi is a court person, and he answers questions. He tries to help fill in the pieces with Kim and Howell, and Danny Daniel shows up, which is the president, but they call him Danny. I just find that weird. Malone discusses the strategy. They find out the woman with the satchel. The satchel contains the original document that they're all looking for. Kim and his daughter see Delana with the bag, so they chase after her. Isabella sees too, and she goes to go after it, and someone throws her overboard. Then Stephanie and Danny, the president, read tell them about the triangle. Now, I didn't write down the page number, but apparently let's see if it's here. Apparently, have you ever looked at the dollar bill? See that? Star of David and the symbol for Mason. And apparently this was something that Washington did to honor Solomon, and we will get to Solomon. He is a very, very important person. He tells them about Larks was told to investigate, and that's when all hell broke loose. Kim and Hannah, the following Malone, and Isabella was following it. Everybody's following. Danny Daniels tells Stephanie about the White House being wired by RCA and that's how the Nixon tapes came about. So then he says he plays the recording between FDR and Tipton. Tipton was asking him to look into the Mellon investigation, and they are going to the day he asked Tipton to do all this and tell him all this stuff is the day that FDR died. So there was no further stuff done. So they go to see Edward Tipton's 74-year-old son. In the meantime, they're still doing the boat chase. And then they chase through the streets. Then Stephanie and the president, Danny, they call him, meet with Edward, and he tells them about the day Roosevelt died in Georgia and that his dad was there. And the book is on the life of an American patriot by George Mason. Henry Morgenthau, Treasury Secretary, and Edward Davis arrives at the White House, Chief of Staff, Ambassador to China. So they have a talk with him. Isabel reports in with Luke Daniels, makes contact with her. She tells him about the duffel and Ham Solomon. Stephanie, the president, speaks with the Chinese ambassador about Kim Jong-un, and Kim Jong says that he's going to use what's in the satchel to destroy America and China. Apparently, this information is so powerful that it could destroy both countries. Then they have a thing in the Adriatic Sea, and we learn more about Solomon. And let's see what I wrote down here. If you look at the stars, I don't know how well you can see that, but they're also in the form of the Star of David, another tribute to Solomon. There are many amazing things about the dollar bill. She decided to toss him one more tidbit. In recent years, 10, 20, 50, and $100 have been redesigned. Lots of bells and whistles have been added to make counterfeiting harder. Ever heard of the Omnibus Appropriation Act? He shook his head. Section 3 of that act expressly forbids Treasury or the Bureau of Engraving from using any funds appropriated by Congress for the redesign of the $1 bill. So then Malone talks to Howell, and there's a big thing about the vote. And it was their signatures and stuff were all approved there. It's all historical. It's so cool. Previously, the Secretary of State referred to the Solicitor's Office for determination. The question is whether the notices of ramification by the several states of the proposed 16th Amendment to the Constitution are in proper form, and if they are found to be in proper form, it is requested that this office prepare the necessary announcement to be made by the Secretary of State under Section 205 of the revised statutes. 11 days after this office forwarded to the Secretary of State a detailed memorandum concerning problems noted within the ratification process for the 16th Amendment, I will not reiterate what was stated therein, except to question why no action was taken relative to its contents. It seems that something more than silence is warranted given the serious legal questions raised, which was why the example from Kentucky was included. Yet instead of a further investigation, the Secretary of State has now requested legal clarification as to his power to relative to declaring a constitutional amendment ratified. The Supreme Court has never directly considered this precise issue, but it was ruled in Field versus Clark that what the president required to do was simply an execution of the act of Congress. It was not making of law. He was the mere agent of the law-making department to ascertain and declare the event upon which it expressed will was to take effect. For your presidential order, the $1 bill was redesigned in 1935. The changes incorporated at that time were as follows. On the obverse, the blue numeral 1 was changed to a gray and made smaller. The gray 1 to the right was removed. The Treasury seal was made smaller and superimposed by Washington, D.C., and a stylized $1 was added over the Treasury seal. The reverse was also modified to include the Great Seal of the United States. Per your specific request, as noted on the next page, the seal was depicted with its reverse side to the left, obverse to the right. That is true. There is only one document that is not a copy in the satchel, and it's the one that Mellon gave to FDR. So then Isabel and Luke arrive, so they go up to Daniel. Kim reads the satchel stuff. He figures out what happens there. Isabel reads the book written by George Mason and done by Andrew Mellon in 1924 and talks about its contents. There's another boat chase. Hannah remembers her school days. Stephanie reads the Patriot Threat. There's a boat chase and people get arrested and end up in jail, so they have to be bailed out. At the library, Howell is able to get onto the cloud and show them the crumpled piece of paper. That's the one paper that wasn't copied, but he copied it. And apparently, it's one of those cipher thingies. All those numbers. And Kim has the original cipher. And they figure it out. Stephanie figures it out. And they figure the whole thing out. Apparently, the tea is this particular gentleman, and he's a patriot, by the way. He is a Daughters of the American Revolution patriot. He is a proven patriot. He paid for the American Revolution out of his own pocket. Paid for the entire thing. Well, not the entire thing, but a good portion. He is a recognized for patriotic service. He was a broker to the Office of Finance. It's all documented. And what they find, what this treasure hunt, what this whole book is about, is finding what is so valuable. And they do find it. You're like, come on, hurry up, find it. It's like those guys on the island. Oh, I forget what it's called. But they're forever digging for the Knights of the Round Table stuff. I forget what it's called. But this guy, Hyman Solomon, he was born in Poland, and he was Jewish, and he was the political broker who assisted the superintendent of finance. English-born Robert Morris as a prime financier of the colonist side during the American Revolutionary War against British. He immigrated to New York City from Poland, and he aided the Continental Army during the period of the American Revolution and helped convert French loans into ready cash by selling bills of exchange for Morris, the superintendent of finance. He also brokered large donations and donated his entire fortune to the American Revolution Army and various funding fathers for the United States. So there's this big, huge thing on Wikipedia if you want to check it out. The problem was, and the whole key to this book, and it's a spoiler if you don't already know, he died in 1785 very suddenly, and due to the failure of the government and private lenders to repay the debt incurred by his war, his family was left penniless at his death at 44. Hundreds of thousands of dollars continental debts Salomon bought with his own fortune were worth only 10 cents on the dollar when he died. His obituary in the Independent Gazette reads, "Last Thursday expired after a lingering illness. Mr. Haim Salomon, an eminent broker of the city, was a native of Poland and the Hebrew nation. He was remarkable for his skill and integrity and his passion, and for his generous and humane deportment. His remains were deposited yesterday in the burial ground of the synagogue of the city." And later on, it's determined that he was later buried with his family, or the other was buried with his family in Virginia. But it is such an interesting story about, just think if we didn't have to pay taxes, just think of all the issues we would have. Or what would be good if we used all this tax money that they take from us and used it for free health insurance for everybody. Wouldn't that be awesome? Free health insurance. But I normally don't read. This is the first time I've ever read Steve Berry, and it was a really, really good book. It took long. It took me longer to read this than most. My average book is about 2 hours. This took about 4. I had to stop for something. But it's a really good book, and it says Cotton Malone, once a member of a elite intelligence division within the Justice Department known as Magellan Billet, is now retired and owns an old bookshop in Denmark. But when his former boss, Stephanie Nell, asked him to track down a rogue North Korean who may have acquired some top secret Treasury Department files, the kind that could bring the United States to its knees, Malone is vaulted into a harrowing 24-hour chase that begins on the canals in Venice and ends in remote islands of Croatia. It is good. You ought to check it out. It is so good. And the fact that some of it is true. This guy existed. And we owed him money, and we never paid him back. And they said that it could take every single penny the United States has to pay his family back now if you contemplate it by interest and stuff like that. And what Stephanie finds, and because what's that thing? So they don't know, so they can honestly say they have no clue what it was if they have to testify under oath and stuff like that. Deniability, that kind of thing. They take care of it. Stephanie burns these documents, these original documents that were kept in pristine condition since 1784 5, and she burns them all. So it's interesting to know. I would have liked to have read more about the documents. I would have liked a couple pictures of those, but apparently they have to be destroyed so that the United States can be safe, and all of our laws can be safe too, with reserve to the taxing thing. Because this guy Kim Jong was going to use it to bring down China and the United States, because China was involved there too. So please hit the like and subscribe. Let me know I'm doing a good job. There's no special effects here. It's just me reading books, talking books. Don't forget to check out Flashback Monday and Star Trek Fridays. I could really appreciate it. I've got this dream in my head. I know it's not going to work or nothing, but I've got this little dream that we make 1,000 subscribers by Christmas. I know that, it would be nice. I'm going to hit 400 videos, or may have already as of this one or the next one. And it would be nice to have 400 subscribers. It would be awesome if you could help me out with this. And please hit the like and subscribe. And please enjoy this book. This was awesome. The fact that it was real. And I am a member of the Daughters of the American Revolution Lineage Society. So to find out that this guy was a patriot, he's A107027, Pennsylvania Patriotic Service, broker to the Office of Finance. Thank you. Have a good one.